You are the words and the music. You are the song that I sing. You are the melody. You are the harmony. Praise to your name I will bring. You are the Lord of lords. You are the mighty God. You are the King of all kings. So now I give back to you the song that you gave to me. You are the song that I
It certainly is a great work, and we're working on. John has a list. He's given us a list of names of all of the police officers, all that work in the police department, from the receptionist and secretaries to the custodian and everybody that's there. We're going to get a list of those names, and we're going to individually just send them some cards and let them know that we do appreciate what they do for us, and share that with them, and they just need to know that. I believe that's good for us to let them know that. It's good to have the Matthews back with us this morning. Last Sunday was a little eventful for them with Neelan, and we're glad that he is back. Well, he's over here with us. He's on our side. He is back with us after his emergency appendectomy that took several hours to do the procedure because they wanted to make sure and confirm. We're glad they did, but he has a few battle scars. He might even show you if you're willing to look. So we're happy that he's up and at 'em, and we look forward to him continuing to improve. Eddie wanted me to announce that today they are going out to eat right after services this morning. They're going to go, after class this morning, they're going to go carry the group out to eat, and they're going to be going over to show choir to see some of our kids involved in that this afternoon at 2 o'clock from there. They were scheduled for Montreat today, and they tried to move the Montreat service up, and the Montreat ladies were not able to today. They've been flexible with that before, but they were not. So we're looking for some help. I'm going to go over there, but we're looking for some help with the Montreat service today. Just a few men, if you're able to go with us, we'd appreciate that, and we can do that service at 1:30. All right. Turn your Bibles to 1 Peter chapter 4. 1 Peter chapter 4 is... you look on the screen. How many of you have watched the Olympics? Yeah, just about everybody has seen something along the lines of the Olympics. And I like them too, but I'll be honest, to start off watching them, I think I was watching them to see what was going to go wrong with all the publicity they've gotten about not having everything ready and everything. So we've been watching. Last night, watched a little bit of the track and field. That's what I like to watch. So last week it was the synchronized diving. That was really interesting. The gymnastics is always a hit, and I know a lot of you got it really early this morning and saw the start of the women's marathon. Who wants to watch them run 26 miles? Somebody does, I guess. But we know that they were doing that this morning and finished, I think, right about the time before we started our service this morning. But if you've watched any of the Olympics, not just this Olympics, but the last one, you've seen this guy right here, right? Michael Phelps. And you've probably seen this image, right? The death stare, as they call it. What I didn't show you is the guy on the other side of what he's looking at is dancing around his opponent that he's going to be swimming against, and he's dancing around trying to distract him, trying to throw him off so that might get in Michael Phelps' head. What an idiot. He just started a fire. I mean, he just instilled something in Michael Phelps that he was going to go after this guy and take him down in the pool, and he did. He won, and last night was his last race, and he got another gold medal last night. I believe he's the most decorated Olympian ever, and was able to do that and represent our country well. But you look at this guy, and you look at that, I mean, just look at that face. How can somebody like that be so focused? How can somebody like that just be so driven? And you know he was nervous, right? If you listen, you think, no, there's no way he was nervous. He knows he's the best. Well, if you listen in some of his interviews, he'll tell you, yes, I was nervous before the race. When you think of all of the things that could go wrong, slipping and falling out of that block, not getting the jump that you would like to get, maybe swallowing some water, I don't know. There's all these kinds of things that could go wrong, but he was still confident. What I want to know, what I'd like to see is I'd like to see a lot of us kind of, not necessarily have that scowl, but have that kind of focus. Nervous, but he knew what his gift was. He knows what his talent is, and he'll use his talent to the best of his ability. You know, you get to think about how Michael Phelps came to be as good as he is. What if I told you this, all right? What if I told you both of his parents were swimmers? Both of his parents were swimmers, and they got together with the intention of forming the perfect swimmer. They went through all this pregnancy thing. When she had the child, she even had him in a pool of water, in a swimming pool. Gave birth to him in a swimming pool. At 6 months, they threw him in the water and let him try to waddle around and try to see what he could do and learn that he could swim. At 2 years old, they put him in training where he could train to become good. And their whole goal was for them to make him an Olympic swimmer. They wanted him to be the most decorated Olympian ever. So they pushed him and they pushed him. He started entering races at the age of 4 and was able to compete. No, that's not how it happened. Matter of fact, his mom and dad, they didn't swim much. At age 7, they had struggled so much with Michael Phelps, he had ADHD. They had struggled with him of trying to find a way so he could vent the energy that he had. Something where he would be able to release the energy. They tried other sports, and nothing worked. And at a birthday party, there was a mom that was nearby and said, "Have you ever thought about swimming?" And she took him to a swimming class. And from there, he uncovered his talent. You know, what if she had said, like, fencing? Or what if she had said something like, "Have you tried cross-stitching?" Took somebody seeing something in someone to give them a little push, to encourage them to try something that they may not have normally tried themselves. Look at this passage with me. 1 Peter chapter 4. Beginning in verse 7. "The end of all things is at hand, therefore be self-controlled, be sober-minded for the sakes of your prayers. Above all, keep loving one another earnestly, since love covers a multitude of sins. Show hospitality to one another without grumbling. As each of you has received a gift, use it to serve one another. As good stewards of God's varied grace, whoever speaks as one who speaks the oracles of God, whoever serves as one who serves by the strength that God supplies, in order that in everything God may be glorified through Jesus Christ. To him belong glory and dominion forever. Amen." You see, what I want us to see this morning is we too can be just as focused as Michael Phelps is in his gift of swimming. He's confident in his gift. He's worked hard at it, yes, but he started somewhere and he became confident in that. But he's also understanding that there's always work to be done. He just didn't win one race and think, "I'm the best," and then go on and that be it. If he did that, he would have continued to fall backwards. He continued to push himself and to push himself to be the best he could be. And when he uses that gift, and he comes out strong with it. You know, it's not this he just is passive about it. He comes out strong with his gift, and he's able to come out of a comfort zone that he might have had before and challenge himself to be something that no one else has ever been. Look at a few of these quotes. "If you want something you've never had, then you've got to do something you've never done." How easy is that? We all sit in these pews and we talk about what we'd like to do for the Lord. Well, I would like to be able to do that. I'd like to be able to serve in that. I'd like to be able to be more vocal about my faith to others. I'd like to be able to help somebody, but we never try to do something different. One more before we get really into the lesson here. the sooner you step away from your comfort zone, the sooner you'll realize that it really wasn't that comfortable after all, or it really wasn't that comfortable. Because we learn to stretch, we learn to grow. Let me tell you something. What if I told you that every one of us has a gift that we are just as strong as Michael Phelps is in swimming? That each one of us has a gift within us, that we are just as talented as LeBron James is in basketball. You are just as talented in this as he is that. God has instilled within us a specific gift, a talent. And whatever your talent is, you've got to uncover that. You've got to try to find that. You've got to examine your life and experiment with things to find out where that gift is if you don't know what it is. And that means stretching out of your comfort zone, getting outside of the box and looking at trying different things, doing different things so that you might be able to see. And even if you're 60 years old or older, maybe you haven't even understood your gift yet. Maybe God has waited this long to reveal it to you, but you have something within you that no one else has, that nobody can do better than you. And what we've got to do is we've got to understand what that gift is and come out strong with it. When you look at this text here, back in 1 Peter, when you look at it, he uses the word, each one of us have a gift. That word gift means ministry or ability. All right, and then you continue on when he's looking at the service. Whoever speaks as one who speaks the oracles of God. Verse 11, whoever serves as the one who serves by the strength that God supplies. That word strength, here's where I want to focus on that for just a second. That word strength, he tells us that you can serve with the strength that God has supplied. That word strength means forcefulness. It's a push. It's a jump. If you want to understand what that gift is that you might have that you don't know yet, you just got to take a jump to find out. And when you do, you just might find that talent. Are you going to fail at times? Are you going to try things and think, you know what? I tried that. That's not for me. I tried that. It's not for me. Well, that's okay. But there's going to be other opportunities for you to try different things, to try to experiment in ministry different ways, and be able to find that gift that you're just as talented in. So I want us to look at a text this morning in Matthew chapter 14. But Ron read. So if you want to go there, I want us to look at an example of where Jesus puts this into practice for us and shows us how this happens. How we can be like this fish and go against the grain and jump up and go into a new world for ourselves. A world that God has prepared for us so that we can use the gifts that we've been given. If you look in the text in John chapter 14, what we have, John the Baptist has just been beheaded. The disciples had found out about it. They went, they took the body, they buried it, they went and told Jesus. They went to a place, and they're out in this field, and there are people that are following Jesus, and Jesus takes the 5 loaves and 2 fish and breaks that and blesses it, and they're able to feed around 15,000 people with it. 5,000 men, it says. John tells us in his account that they come and try to take Jesus by force to make him a king, but when they're seeking to make Jesus a king by force, he withdraws himself for a while so that they don't see him. I think he just kind of fizzles out or goes around them unknowingly. Maybe they're deceived so they can't see him, who he is. You got 15,000 people and everybody's looking at you, and he just disappears off into the mountains. The disciples go ahead and get in a boat. And they get in a boat and they begin to row out in the boat, and they're looking for Jesus. And this is where we pick up in our text. When you look as they're looking for Jesus in chapter 14, verse 22. Immediately he made the disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side while he dismissed the crowds. After he dismissed the crowds, he went up to the mountain by himself to pray. When evening came, he was there alone, but the boat by this time was a long way out from land. If you look at John's account, it can be anywhere from 7 miles to 3.5 miles away from the shore. And as they're there, the boat begins to be beaten by the waves. The wind was against them. It was the 4th watch of the night. It's late. I mean late. Rather, and as we would classify it, early in the morning. Imagine yourself on that boat and feel the wind as it's beating against you. The waves, the boat's beginning to sway back and forth and to tip over. Water's coming in the boat. They're looking for Jesus. And as they look off in the distance, they see something. Look at what they see. When the disciples saw him walking on the sea, the 4th watch of the night, Jesus comes walking towards them. But when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified and they said, "It is a ghost." The first thing that we really have to do if we want to be able to come out of our comfort zone and come out strong and be able to try those things and use the gifts that God's given us is that we got to really see what is on the other side. You see, so many times we may be in our comfort zone, in our box, and we look out and we think we see something outside of the box and we don't want to step out of it. You see, we're in the box, we're in the comfort zone because this is where we feel safe. This is where we feel secure. This is where everything happens that we know of and we're comfortable with, and we don't want to disrupt what we've got here. We don't want to mess this up. And when we look out, we see things and we see other people doing things, but there's something that's preventing us from doing those things. There's something that's holding us back as we try to look on the other side of this little box that we're in. As we look, we see things, and we're deceived a lot of times. And we really don't see what's on the other side. We think we do. We think we've got it figured out. We've listened to other people of other stories, and we think we know what is on the other side, but we really don't. There was a Persian spy who was captured. He was sentenced to death by the Persian army, and the general gives the man, the prisoner who's supposed to be killed, gives him an option. You have the option. You can be put before a firing squad. I'm going to get my water here. You can be put before a firing squad, or if you look over there to the other side, there's a big black door. And there's something waiting for you beyond that black door if you're willing to take it. Fear had spread through all of the prisoners because they had always heard that the general would give them this option. Yet none of them would choose the black door. They were always terrified of what gruesome things was beyond that other side of that door. All they could see was something dark and something gloomy, and they were afraid to go to that door. Every one of those prisoners decided to be shot in front of the firing squad. The general looked at some of his soldiers and he says, "You know, rarely do they ever take the black door." One of the soldiers says, "Well, what is behind the black door?" You know what he said. Freedom. It was a corridor that was dark and dreary, but if you opened the door, you were able to go down to that corridor and find an outside of the city, and you had your freedom. But no one ever took the black door. Why? Because what they saw was known. All they saw was what they knew. They thought they saw something over there that wasn't really what they saw. They were deceived. We've got to make sure we see really what is on the other side. Because when you got these disciples here, when you've got them on a boat, and you know, if that's me, if I'm in this boat and I look out and I know that that people don't normally just appear walking on the water, and I know the wind is blowing in the waves and I'm already nervous because I don't have a life jacket on. And I look out and see a figure like this, you think I'm going to be afraid? Yes, sir. You think I might think it's a ghost? Well, we always imagine Jesus wearing that white robe, don't we? Maybe as the moonlight, if there's a little faint bit of moonlight as it shines down the waves, as everything is going back and forth, And when the waves go up, you can't see him. And when it comes down, you see this glow coming on the water. And the disciples thought, based on their knowledge of things that they knew or had heard from others, they thought they had saw a ghost. They looked and they saw a ghost. It says they were terrified and they were afraid because they thought they saw a ghost. Let's continue on. Immediately, Jesus spoke to them, saying, "Take heart, it is I. Do not be afraid." Peter, as we know him, he answered him, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." And he said, "Come." Peter got out of the boat, and he walked on the water, and he came to Jesus. The reason why we don't use the gifts that God has given us, for the most part, is because we don't know what they are. And the reason why we don't know what they are, the overwhelming reason as to why we don't know what they are, is because we are afraid of what might happen if we fail. We're afraid of what's on the other side. Fear is a tricky thing. Made them see this ghost, but we know that as the story goes, Peter didn't see a ghost. He saw what was really on the other side was Jesus. Fear controls us. It paralyzes us. But the Huffington Post last year put out this little article. You may have seen it. That said 3 reasons why fear is a good thing. The first one is fear and courage always go hand in hand. You can't have courage without fear. If you look at Joshua chapter 1 and you see how Joshua was going to take on the Israelites as the leader of the nation and lead them on through to across the Jordan into the promised land to take over Jericho and Ai and all those other cities. You see in that first chapter as the Lord tells him 3 times in those first 9 verses, you be strong, you be of good courage, do not be afraid. Fear and courage go hand in hand together. If you are afraid of something, there's an opportunity for you to show courage. Now, there are times, I guess you could say, that that's when there is fear, that there's an opportunity for you to use stupidity as well. As we watch those horror movies, we always know, don't go into the room. Don't separate yourselves. And we think there are times when that does cause problems, and that keeps us from looking at the courage side. But another reason that fear is good is because the physiology of it can be misleading. All right, this is really neat. The same chemical that is released in our body for fear is adrenaline. When you are afraid of something, the adrenaline kicks in your body. And it gives you that stimulus, you know what it's called, the fight or flight. You're either going to stand and take it and seize it and fight, or you're going to be afraid and run away. The same chemical that tells you to be afraid and tells you to hold back and tells you to not do anything outside of your box because you're afraid you're going to mess something up is the same chemical that tells you jump out, come out strong, and take it on. A friend of mine and I were talking this week, Jay Mitchell and I were talking about this very subject. He said he'd watched an episode of John Gruden's quarterback show that he has, and was interviewing Brett Favre and going through all of the things that happened with Brett Favre. When Brett Favre came out on the Packers, his first game as the quarterback, he went in because of an injury to somebody else. He said, as soon as that man went down with that injury, I knew that he wasn't getting up to play. I grabbed my helmet. I took off running as fast as I can to get out on that field because I was ready to seize my moment. I was ready to take it on. I was ready to do this. Then John Gruden showed him another video of after he was traded and signed with the Vikings, and the first time on the field as a Minnesota Viking. And Brett Favre walks onto the field. He asked him, "Why? Where's that Brett Favre that was before, that took off running and was able to seize the game and go in and take control and just take that moment and that opportunity and do something with it? Where is that one?" He says, "That's a Brett Favre right there that's terrified of what might go wrong." You see? You see the difference? We all have it. We all have it within us. The physiology of it can be misleading. It can. It told those disciples, that's a ghost. But it told Peter, no, that's Jesus. We've got to really be able to see what's on the other side. Fear is instructive. It teaches us. It shows us what we can do. It teaches us that maybe this is not for us if we try it. But at least we have that opportunity to be able to do it. Growth requires expansion, church. And that can be scary because it forces us to go beyond the barriers and break down the barriers that have held us in for so long. Maybe that fear that we have when it comes to serving God, when it comes to doing something at church, when it comes to taking part in a care group, when it comes to taking part in helping out and driving the bus, when it comes in taking part of helping with the kids' classes as we try to sign them up, when it comes along the lines of taking communion to some of our shut-ins, when it comes along the line of going to visit someone in the hospital, when it comes along the lines of making a phone call and telling somebody that you miss them, when it comes along the lines of seeing somebody that you know needs encouragement, but you're afraid to do so and you always say, somebody needs to do this. When you're so afraid, when that opportunity hits for you to share your faith with somebody, when they provide you that opportunity and mention something about church, and you've got a chance to mention about the Church of Christ here at Woodlawn and about what Jesus has done for you, but you're afraid to say something because you don't want to ruin a relationship, so you stay in your comfort zone. Maybe that feeling of fear that you've got is just so misleading that you're looking for the wrong things. You're not really seeing that Jesus is on the other side. And as Jesus says to Peter, see, Peter even knows that. Peter knows, you know what, that might be a ghost. And he hears, it's Jesus. And what does Peter say? Hot dog, Jesus, here I come. No. Jesus, if that's you, tell me to come. Bid me to come to you. You see, every now and then, all of us, even Peter, he needed that little push. He needed to be told. He needed to be asked. He needed someone to ask him. So maybe you've got a talent, and maybe you see others that aren't using it. Maybe you could take this opportunity to say, hey, why don't you try this? Bid them to come. He needed that push to come, and he did. And Peter stepped out of the boat. That brings us to the last point here that we make with it. We got to really see what's on the other side. And then we just got to go ahead and jump. Just go ahead and jump. 2 Corinthians. If you'll look in your Bible, 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 7 tells us that we walk by faith, not by sight. Faith is the substance, Hebrews tells us, is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. By faith we know that's how we show God that we know who He is, that we believe in Him, and without that faith we cannot please Him. When Peter steps out and does what has been commanded him to come out onto the water to take a step, Peter had never walked on water before. I doubt the thought had ever occurred to Peter, I wonder if I could walk on water. But he stepped out into the unknown. He stepped out and did something that he had never done before. And he was able to do it. Sometimes, church, it just takes that first step for you to take the plunge and go. And once you get there, it's not as bad as you thought it was going to be. God provides us with that opportunity. And He bids us, He calls to us the same way. Martin Luther King said this: faith is taking the first step even when you don't see the whole staircase. But God does. It's you take that first step that you can't even see, but when you step, God provides you with another one that's a little higher, and another one that's a little higher, and another one that may be more difficult to take, but you know that if you take it, you might be able to take some more. Go ahead and jumping. Ephesians chapter 5, this last text we'll look at here as we close out. Ephesians chapter 5, verses 15 through 17. Look carefully then how you walk. If we're taking steps, look carefully then how you walk. Not as unwise, but as wise. You make the best use of the time, because the days are evil. Therefore, don't be foolish, but understand what the will of the Lord is. I almost wish somebody else would have penned those words other than Paul and given them, and that could have been the words that Peter recited to himself as he stepped out. Be careful how I'm going to walk. Don't walk as somebody that doesn't know and understand. Don't walk foolishly, but walk knowing that Jesus is on the other side. And I have to do this now. I have to seize the day. I have to take advantage of the time that I've got. I've got to make the best use of the time that I have in this world and every opportunity that's provided for me to grow, to stretch out, to go beyond my little box. Because the days are evil. And every opportunity you pass up, your box gets a little closer. Every day you don't do something to try to stretch and grow in the Lord, your box gets a little tinier. Until pretty soon those days are so evil, they have seized you and swallowed you up, and you've lost your faith. And you become stubborn, and you become lazy, and you become just somebody that sits in the pew. You know, you may make millions of dollars with the talent that God's given you. You may. You may go on and win more Olympic medals than Michael Phelps ever thought to win. You might be able to change the entire world because of the talent that God has given you. Or you might just save your soul, and you might just bring someone else to Christ because of what you do. It's a win-win, isn't it, church? The only loss is not taking that step. Don't be deceived. Look at what's on the other side and come out and be strong and use that gift that God has given you with force to accomplish. Remember that last part of the verse in Ephesians 5. But understand what the will of the Lord is for you to do what you've been created to do. Some of you are here and you're not a Christian. You may even this might be your first time to be at a church. The first step you need to make is coming to Christ. Just as Peter was on that boat, you're in this pew. And just as Jesus was on that water, He's in front of you saying, bidding you, begging you, come on. Come on, I'll be with you. Come on, I can handle it. Now, Peter didn't walk very far. We don't know how far he walked. He ended up falling because he became afraid again. He misunderstood what was there in front of him, Jesus. Maybe you're here today and maybe you are a Christian. Maybe that's you. Maybe you've took those steps, but you began to sink. And Jesus says, look back up. Here I am. Hold on. Let me take care of you. The blood is here to remove your sins. for the first time, if you're not a Christian, by becoming one through faith, repentance, and baptism, or just by you coming to be refreshed and be able to stand again and take the next step. Whatever it is, it all starts with that step. Maybe you need to make it this morning. As we stand, as we sing that song.
You are the words and the music. You are the song that I sing. You are the melody. You are the harmony. Praise to your name I will bring. You are the Lord of lords. You are the mighty God. You are the King of all kings. So now I give back to you the song that you gave to me. You are the song that I sing.